Look, I need to tell someone this story because, God, I don't even know where to start. Maybe with the bruise. Yeah, let's start there. It wasn't even the pain that got to me first, though trust me, her hand left its mark. It was the shame, the absolute humiliation of pulling down my sleeve in my own damn house so no one would see what my daughter-in-law had done to me. A bruise doesn't sound like much when you say it out loud, does it? Just a bruise. But when it comes from the woman who married your only son, when it comes from someone who's supposed to call you family, that bruise becomes something else entirely. That night, the night everything changed, we sat at my dinner table. The same oak table I'd saved up for 20 years ago, the one where I'd helped Julian with his homework every night after his father died. Julian sat there now, 32 years old, stiff as a board with his eyes glued to his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. And Ilara, my so-called daughter-in-law, she floated around my kitchen like she was queen of the damn castle. I watched her place a steaming plate in front of Julian. Beautiful presentation. She always was good at making things look perfect on the surface. Then another plate in front of herself. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the air, making my stomach clench with hunger. And then nothing for me. Just nothing. I sat there at the head of my own table, the table I bought in the house I'd worked 3 jobs to pay for, and watched them prepare to eat while I got air. My stomach burned, not from hunger, though that was there too, from the insult, the deliberation of it. This wasn't an oversight. This was a message. I cleared my throat, kept my voice steady, because I'd learned long ago that showing weakness only makes predators bolder. I whispered, "This is still my house." God, listen to me, whispering in my own house. But I needed to say it, needed to remind myself as much as them that I wasn't invisible yet, that I still existed in this space I'd carved out with my own 2 hands. Ilara's head turned toward me, slow and deliberate, like a snake. Her lips curved into what most people would call a smile, but I'd been a school principal for 28 years. I knew the difference between a smile and a threat. She hissed back, "Not for long." The words hit me like ice water. Not for long. Not for long. And Julian, my only child, the boy I raised alone after his father's heart attack left us with nothing but debt and each other, he kept eating. Didn't look up. Didn't stop her. Didn't even pause with his fork halfway to his mouth. It was like I wasn't even there. Later that night, and this is the part I still can't believe actually happened, Ilara's hands found me, not in comfort, not in any way that families are supposed to touch each other. The crack of her palm across my cheek echoed through the hallway like a gunshot. Fire spread across my face, tears springing to my eyes, not from pain, but from shock. My own daughter-in-law, bold enough to put her hands on me in the home I built brick by brick. And my son, my flesh and blood, the boy I once carried through the rain to get him to school on time, just stood there, frozen, like I was a stranger he'd never seen before. That's when it hit me, really hit me. I wasn't just dealing with a rude daughter-in-law who didn't like me. I wasn't fighting some typical family drama that would blow over after a few awkward holidays. I was fighting for my place in my own family. And I was losing. That night, My daughter-in-law laid hands on me in my own home, and my son? My own son just stood there and let it happen. Tell me honestly, if your own child watched their spouse hit you and said nothing, would you fight back? Call the police? Or would you just stand there bleeding, wondering where you went wrong as a parent? Drop a comment because I'm losing my mind here and I need to know I'm not crazy for what I did next. You want to know how I got here? How a woman who once made grown men tremble during parent conferences ended up bleeding in her own hallway? It started with my phone. I didn't notice it first. Who pays attention to a charger going missing? But then my doctor's office couldn't reach me for my appointment reminder. Then my sister called the house phone, worried sick because I never answer anymore. I've been calling your cell for days, Drew. That's when I found it. My charger, hidden behind the microwave. Such a small thing, but why hide it? When I asked Alara, she tilted her head with that sweet, confused smile. Oh, Mama Heart, you probably just forgot where you put it. Happens to all of us. But I didn't forget. I know where I put my things. One by one, she cut the threads of my life. First my phone, then she rescheduled my doctor's appointment because I looked tired. Even my damn mail started disappearing. Important letters from the pension board, insurance documents, gone. I'm organizing everything for you, Mama Heart. You have so much on your plate. I told myself it was care, but it was control. And God help me, I let it happen. See, I'd been Principal Heart for 28 years, 28 years of dealing with the worst kids, the angriest parents, the most broken families. I thought I could read people, thought I had instincts about manipulation and lies. But she was good, so damn good. The neighbors started avoiding me after she began her little coffee dates. Mrs. Chen, who had borrowed sugar from me for 15 years, suddenly couldn't meet my eyes. The mailman stopped chatting. Even my pharmacist spoke to me like I was made of glass. We're just worried about you, Mrs. Hart. Your daughter-in-law says. What did she say? What lies did she plant in their minds while sipping tea and playing the concerned new wife? Julian started repeating her words. My son, the boy I raised alone after his father's heart died at 45, began questioning my memory. Mother, maybe you're just tired. Mother, Alara's just trying to help. Mother, sometimes you don't remember things quite right. Each sentence felt like a nail in a coffin I hadn't built. The worst part? She was so careful, so precise, never left fingerprints on her cruelty. Always had Julian there to witness her sweetness, never her venom. But I caught glimpses, little moments when her mask slipped, like when she thought I was napping and I heard her on the phone. She's getting worse, more paranoid. Julian's really struggling with it. Or when she'd smile at me across the dinner table. Not kindly, but like a predator watching wounded prey. I started locking my bedroom door at night. Something about the way she looked at me in the dark hallways made my skin crawl. I'd lie there, heart pounding at every creak, clutching a lamp like a weapon. Pathetic. That's what I'd become. A woman who'd once controlled entire school assemblies, now cowering in her own house. But the real red flag, the one I should have seen blazing like a wildfire, came 3 weeks before everything exploded. I woke up one night to use the bathroom. The house was dark, quiet, but as I crept down the hall, I saw her, Alara, standing in my doorway, just
standing there, watching me sleep. When she saw me looking, she smiled. Not embarrassed, not apologetic, just smiled. Couldn't sleep either, Mama Heart. Sometimes I worry about you in here all alone. The way she said it, like she was already planning my funeral. I should have run then, should have called someone, anyone. But who would believe me? My own son thought I was losing my mind. But I didn't realize just how dangerous she really was. Not until the night she decided I'd seen too much. The first time Alara put her full weight into me, I wasn't prepared. It happened in the kitchen, my kitchen, where I'd cooked thousands of meals, where Julian used to sit at the counter doing homework while I stirred pots and listened to his day. That morning felt normal, too normal, looking back. I was going through the mail, finally found some of those missing letters stuffed behind the coffee maker. Convenient place for them to accidentally end up, right? The electric bill caught my attention. Late fees. $37 in late fees on a bill I distinctly remember paying. I keep meticulous records, always have. 28 years of balancing school budgets taught me that. Alara, I called out, keeping my voice calm and level. Professional, the way I used to address parents who'd bounce checks. Can you help me understand something about this electric bill? She glided in from the living room, all grace and flowing hair. Of course, Mama Heart. What's confusing you? Confusing me? Not what's wrong or what happened. What's confusing me? Like I was some addled old woman who couldn't read numbers. I held up the statement. It shows late fees, but I paid this on the 15th. I have the bank record right here. Her face. God, the transformation was instant, like someone had flipped a switch. The sweet mask cracked and something cold and reptilian slithered out. Are you accusing me of stealing, old woman? The words hit like a slap. Old woman. Not Mama Heart. Not even my name. Old woman. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just trying to understand. No, you are. Her voice rose, shrill and venomous. You're standing there calling me a thief in your precious little house, aren't you? Poor little Drusilla thinks everyone's out to rob her blind. That's when she moved. Fast. Faster than I expected. Her hand slammed into my shoulders, both palms flat against my chest and shoved hard. The counter edge caught me right in the kidney, granite biting through my thin robe like a blade. Pain exploded up my spine, white-hot and breathtaking. I couldn't even scream. The air just left, gone. I gripped the counter's edge, gasping, world spinning like a broken carnival ride. For a heartbeat, we just stared at each other. Her chest heaving, eyes wild, me clutching granite like it was the only thing keeping me upright. Then footsteps. Julian's voice from the doorway. What's going on? I heard yelling. And that's when Alara became someone else entirely. The tears came instantly. Perfect, crystalline tears that somehow didn't smudge her makeup. Her hand flew to her chest, fingers splayed like she was protecting herself from attack. Julian, her voice cracked with just the right amount of tremor. She came at me. I didn't want to hurt her, but she grabbed me and I had to push her away. My mouth fell open. The sheer audacity of it. The calculated performance. Julian, I gasped, still bent over the counter, ribs screaming. She shoved me into the... Honey, are you okay? He was already moving toward her. Toward her! his arms wrapped around Alara's shaking shoulders while I stood there bleeding inside, granite still pressed into my back like a brand. "I'm so sorry," she whispered into his chest. "I know she's your mother, but I think she's getting confused, paranoid. This morning she accused me of stealing money, and when I tried to explain, she lost it." Lies. Beautiful, perfect lies delivered with Academy Award tears. I watched my son, my baby boy, who I'd rocked through nightmares, who I'd taught to tie his shoes and ride a bike and treat people with kindness, stroke her hair and murmur comfort. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe. I've got you." Not once did he look at me. Not once did he ask if I was hurt. His mother could have been dying on that kitchen floor, and he wouldn't have noticed. All he saw was his wife's crocodile tears. "Julian," my voice came out like sandpaper. "Please, just listen to me for 1 second." Finally, he turned. But the look in his eyes, it wasn't concern. It wasn't love. It was pity mixed with something worse. Embarrassment. He was embarrassed by me. "Mother, maybe we should call Dr. Peterson. Get you checked out. These episodes." "Episodes!" The word came out strangled. "What episodes?" Alara lifted her head from his chest, and for just a split second, a single unguarded moment, she looked at me over his shoulder. The tears were gone. Her eyes were sharp, calculating, and she smiled. A tiny, private smile meant just for me. A smile that said, "I win." "She's been having them for weeks," she told Julian, voice still shaky with manufactured trauma. "Mood swings, accusations. I didn't want to worry you, but..." I stood there, pain radiating through my torso, watching my son nod, watching him believe every poisonous word that fell from her lips. That night, I locked my bedroom door and pressed the dresser against it too. My ribs ached with every breath, probably bruised, maybe cracked. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the hollow echo in my chest where my relationship with my son used to live. I'd lost him, completely, to her web of lies and perfect tears. Am I losing my mind here? Your own mother is bleeding from being shoved into a counter, and you comfort the person who hurt her? I keep replaying this moment, wondering if I failed as a parent, or if some people just choose evil over family. Has anyone else watched their child pick their spouse over basic human decency? Drop a comment, because I'm starting to think I don't even know who I raised anymore.
After the kitchen incident, Ilara stopped pretending entirely. The food disappeared first. Not all at once, that would have been too obvious, but portions got smaller. My plate would have scraps while theirs overflowed. When I dared to ask for more, she'd tilt her head with that practiced concern. "Dr. Reyes said you need to cut back, Mama Heart. Less salt, smaller portions. I'm just looking after your health." Dr. Reyes. The doctor I hadn't seen in months because she kept rescheduling my appointments. Some nights I got nothing at all, just the smell of whatever feast they shared drifting through the house like torture. I started hiding crackers in my nightstand, hoarding granola bars like some kind of animal. The shame of it. God, the shame. But it was the isolation that really broke me down. My phone calls stopped going through. The landline developed this mysterious echo that made conversations impossible. My mail kept vanishing. Pension statements, insurance documents, letters from friends. Gone. Must be the Postal Service. You know how unreliable they've gotten.
Mrs. Chin stopped waving when I walked to the mailbox. The neighbors avoided eye contact. Even Father Murphy at St. Mary's started giving me those gentle, pitying smiles reserved for the mentally unwell. "How are you feeling, Drusilla? Your daughter-in-law mentioned you've been having some difficulties." What difficulties? What lies had she planted in their minds? Then came the night that changed everything. I was coming back from the bathroom, creeping through my own house like a ghost because I had learned to move quietly, to not disturb them. The hallway was dark, but I could hear voices from downstairs. Julian and Alora having their late-night conversations. I was almost to my room when she appeared. Just materialized in the hallway like smoke. No warning, no footsteps. 1 second the hall was empty. The next, she was there, blocking my path. "Going somewhere, Mama Heart?" Her voice was different, colder. The sweet mask was completely gone. Just back to my room?" I whispered. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her expensive perfume, see the calculation in her dark eyes. "You've been listening, haven't you? Creeping around, trying to hear things that aren't your business. I wasn't—" "Don't lie to me." Her voice dropped to a hiss. "I know what you're doing. Trying to turn Julian against me, trying to poison him with your paranoid delusions." My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. "Elara, I would never—" That's when her hand moved, fast as a snake strike. Crack. The sound echoed through the hallway like a gunshot. Pain exploded across my cheek, white hot and blinding. My head snapped sideways, ears ringing, tears springing to my eyes. For a moment, I couldn't even process what had happened. The sting spread across my face like fire, and I stood there, stunned, hand rising instinctively to my burning cheek. "That's for thinking you can manipulate my husband in my house," she whispered. But then I heard it. Footsteps. Julian's voice from the end of the hall. "What's going on up here?" I turned, hope flickering in my chest. My son. Finally, he'd see. He'd witness what she really was. Julian stood there in his pajamas, hair mussed from sleep, eyes adjusting to the darkness. He looked between us, his wife standing calm and composed, his mother clutching her burning cheek. "Julian," I gasped, voice barely a whisper. She struck me." His mouth opened, then closed. His eyes darted between us, confusion and something else, something that looked like embarrassment flickering across his face. "I heard voices," he said slowly, "raised voices. Mother, were you having another episode?" Another episode. The words landed like a second slap. Alara moved then, smooth as silk, stepping toward Julian with tears, perfect, crystalline tears, suddenly streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered, voice breaking. "I know she's your mother, but she cornered me in the hallway, started accusing me of terrible things. When I tried to walk away, she grabbed me and I pushed her back. I was scared, Julian." Lies. Beautiful, perfect lies delivered with Academy Award tears. I watched my son, the boy I'd raised alone, worked 3 jobs to support, carried through every childhood illness and heartbreak, wrap his arms around her, comfort her, murmur soft words of reassurance while I stood there with my cheek on fire. "It's okay, sweetheart," he whispered into her hair. "You're safe. I've got you." Not once did he look at me. Not once did he ask if I was hurt. "Julian," I tried again, voice cracking, "please, just listen to me for 1 second." Finally, he turned. But the look in his eyes, it wasn't concern. It wasn't love. It was pity. "Mother, maybe we need to call Dr. Peterson in the morning, get you some help. These episodes are getting worse." Episodes, that word again, like my pain, my fear, my desperation were just symptoms of a diseased mind. I stood there in my own hallway, cheek throbbing, watching my son choose his wife's crocodile tears over his mother's blood. That night, I pushed my dresser against the bedroom door and cried until I had nothing left. Because that's when I realized I hadn't just lost my son to her lies. I'd lost the war for my own existence in my own home. I didn't expect the knock at the door that Tuesday morning. I was in the kitchen, nursing a cup of weak tea, the only breakfast Alara had deemed appropriate for my condition, when the firm, authoritative knock echoed through the house. Through the peephole, I saw a man I didn't immediately recognize. Tall, broad-shouldered, expensive coat that screamed money and power. But the eyes, something familiar about those eyes. I opened the door with the chain still latched. He said, "Principal Hart, you saved me once. I never forgot." The voice struck me like lightning. Suddenly, I was back in my classroom, facing down a furious 15-year-old with bloody knuckles and murder in his stare. "Rowan? Rowan McKay?" He smiled, and I fumbled with the chain, hands shaking as I let him in. He filled my entryway like he owned it, which, given what I'd heard whispered about his business empire, he probably could have. "Jesus, look at you," I breathed. "You're so old, successful." He laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. "Both, I suppose. That's what happens when you channel all that rage into something useful instead of destructive." We sat in my living room, and he told me everything. Military service after high school, business ventures, an empire built on the foundation I'd beaten into his stubborn skull, one detention at a time. He said, "I never married, never had children, poured everything into work, into proving that angry kid from Roosevelt could become somebody. But now," he paused, and I saw vulnerability flicker across his weathered face. He said, "Cancer, stage 4, 6 months if I'm lucky." My heart clenched. This man, this success story I'd wondered about for decades, was dying. "I'm so sorry, Rowan." "Don't be. I've had a good run. Better than anyone expected from that punk who used to curse your name in detention. He leaned forward, eyes intense. He said, "But here's the thing, Principal Hart. I never forgot what you did for me. You were the only one who saw potential when everyone else saw problems." Where was this going? He said, "I've been trying to find you for years. When I made my first million, then my 10th, but you'd retired, moved here, kept your privacy. Took some doing to track you down." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He said, "I want to give it to you, all of it. The company, the properties, the investments, everything I built with the foundation you gave me." I couldn't breathe. The room spun like I was drunk. "Rowan, I couldn't possibly." He said, $85 million, give or take, depending on market fluctuations. You made me who I am, Principal Hart. Without you, I'd have been dead in an alley at 16. $85 million. For the first time in months, I felt something besides fear and hunger. Hope, power, freedom. I could leave this nightmare. I could hire lawyers, doctors, investigators. I could fight back.
"There's one condition," Rowan continued. "I want to meet your family, the people who be part of your life when I'm gone. Make sure you're surrounded by people who care about you." And that's when the dream started cracking. "My family," I repeated slowly. "Your son, right? Julian? And his wife, Elena?" "Ilara," I corrected. "I'd love to take you all to dinner. Somewhere nice. I want to see the woman who raised such a devoted son." Devoted. If only he knew. "They'd love to meet you," I lied, because what else could I do? This was my lifeline. But as we talked, as Rowan's voice carried through the house, I heard it. The faintest creak from upstairs, the sound of a footstep that shouldn't have been there. Ilara was home. She was supposed to be at her yoga class, but she was home, and she was listening. Every word about the money, the inheritance, the $85 million, she heard it all. When Rowan left an hour later, promising to arrange dinner for the next evening, I stood in my doorway watching his car disappear. Behind me, I could hear movement upstairs. Ilara, probably rushing to get back to wherever she was supposed to be, pretending she hadn't been eavesdropping. But I knew, and more terrifyingly, she knew. She knew about the money, about my potential escape, about everything. That evening at dinner, the first real meal she'd served me in weeks, Ilara was different, sweeter, more attentive, the loving daughter-in-law act cranked up to 11. "Mama Hart, you look so much better today. I'm so glad you're feeling stronger." Julian looked confused by her sudden kindness, but he didn't question it. "Oh, Julian," she said casually, buttering her bread. "Mama Hart mentioned an old student is coming to dinner tomorrow, someone who's done very well for himself." Very well for himself. Such careful phrasing. "That's nice," Julian said. "What kind of business?" I kept it vague, but I could see Ilara's mind working, calculating, planning.
Any friend of Mama Hart's is a friend of ours, she said sweetly. We'll make sure he feels welcome. The way she said friend, like she was already spending money that wasn't hers. That night, I barely slept. I thought salvation had knocked on my door, but now I wondered if I'd just signed both our death warrants. Because I was about to learn that introducing a dying millionaire to Ilara wasn't salvation. It was the most dangerous mistake of my life.
Ilara spent the entire day preparing for Rowan's visit. Not just the food, though she cooked like she was auditioning for a cooking show. Prime rib, roasted vegetables, homemade bread that filled the house with the kind of warmth I hadn't felt in months. No, she prepared herself. Hair appointment at noon, professional makeup, a dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget if I'd been allowed to buy my own groceries. We need to make a good impression, she told Julian, who was polishing his best shoes like we were meeting royalty. This could be important. Important. She didn't say, for Mama Hart, just important. When Rowan arrived at 7 sharp, Ilara was there instantly, taking his coat, offering drinks, playing the perfect hostess in my house. Mr. McKay, I'm Ilara. I've heard so much about you. She extended her hand like she was granting him an audience. Mama Hart has told us wonderful things. Mama Hart. She hadn't called me that in weeks, but tonight I was her beloved mother-in-law again. Dinner was a performance worthy of Broadway. She hung on every word Rowan said about his business empire, his properties, his investments, laughed at his stories, asked intelligent questions about market trends and expansion opportunities. You know, she said, cutting her prime rib with delicate precision, Julian and I have been talking about investing. We're young. We have time for our money to grow, but it's so hard to know where to start. Rowan's eyes flicked to me, then back to her. Investment requires patience and wisdom. Sometimes the best investments are in people. Oh, absolutely, Ilara agreed, leaning forward with practiced interest. Like what you're planning for Mama Hart? Julian mentioned your generous offer. It's so wonderful when successful people remember those who helped them. My blood turned to ice. Julian had told her. When? How much did she know? Rowan set down his fork slowly. Did he now? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Well, yes, Ilara continued, either oblivious to the danger or ignoring it completely. Mama Hart mentioned you wanted to, how did you put it, take care of her in her golden years. It's so touching, so rare to see that kind of gratitude. Is it? Rowan's voice had gone flat, cold. Julian shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I hope that's okay. Ilara and I don't keep secrets from each other. We're a family. A family, Rowan repeated slowly. And tell me, as her family, how exactly have you been taking care of Drusilla? The question hung in the air like a blade. Oh, we do our best, Ilara replied smoothly. It's been challenging, you know. She's getting forgetful, sometimes confused, but we manage. Confused how? Well, Ilara glanced at Julian, who nodded encouragingly. She sometimes thinks we're trying to hurt her? Paranoid thoughts. Yesterday, she accused me of hiding her medication. Last week, she was convinced I was stealing money from her purse. Every word a perfectly crafted lie. She even had an episode where she tried to attack me. She dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. I didn't want to worry Julian, but sometimes I'm actually frightened of her. I wanted to scream, wanted to grab her by the throat and shake the truth out of her, but I sat frozen, watching this masterclass in manipulation unfold.
I see, Rowan said quietly. And Julian, you've witnessed this confusion? My son nodded reluctantly. It's hard to talk about, but yes, Mother's been having episodes, getting angry over nothing, making wild accusations. We're actually looking into care facilities, somewhere she'll be safe. Safe. The word tasted like poison. Rowan sat back in his chair, wine glass in hand, studying all three of us like specimens under a microscope. How interesting, he said finally, because the woman I knew, the woman who changed my life, was sharp as a razor, tough as nails, the kind of person who'd fight like hell before letting anyone put her anywhere she didn't want to go. Ilara's perfect smile flickered for just a moment. People change, Mr. McKay. Age can be unkind. It breaks my heart to see her this way. Yes, Rowan agreed, his eyes never leaving her face. Age is unkind. It strips away our illusions, shows us who people really are beneath all the pretty masks they wear. The silence that followed was deafening. Rowan stood abruptly, reaching for his wallet. Thank you for dinner. It's been illuminating. You're leaving? Ilara's voice pitched higher, the mask slipping further. But we haven't had dessert. I made your favorite. Julian researched what kind of cake you preferred. Julian had researched his favorite cake. My son had looked up a dying man's dessert preferences so his wife could better manipulate him. I'm afraid I've lost my appetite, he said coldly. And Drusilla, would you walk me to my car? I started to stand, but Ilara was faster. Oh, she shouldn't be walking in the dark. Her balance isn't what it used to be. Julian, why don't you... I think she can manage. He cut her off with a kind of authority that brooked no argument. Outside, the night air felt like salvation. Rowan walked slowly to his car, hands in his pockets, saying nothing until we reached the driver's side. How long? He asked quietly. How long what? How long had they been torturing you? The word struck me like a physical blow. Torture. Someone finally had a name for what I'd been enduring. Months, maybe longer. It started so gradually. He nodded grimly. She's professional, expert-level manipulation. Your son? He believes every word she says. Everything she tells him he accepts as truth. Rowan was quiet for a long moment, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. This changes everything, he said, pressing it into my hands. I was going to handle the transfer quietly, take my time, but after tonight, we're accelerating the timeline. Rowan, what's your... My lawyer will contact you tomorrow morning. We're executing the will immediately. And Drusilla, he gripped my shoulders gently, when you have the resources to fight back, and you will have them very soon, don't show mercy to people who showed you none. I watched his taillights disappear into the darkness, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. Behind me, I could hear raised voices from the house, Ilara shrill and demanding, Julian's trying to calm her down. They were arguing about the dinner, about Rowan's reaction, about what his sudden departure meant for their plans. Their plans. For my money, my inheritance, my life. I thought the dinner from hell was rock bottom. I had no idea it was just the dress rehearsal for the main event.
The call came at 6 a.m. Mr. Patterson's voice was professional, measured, but I could hear the weight behind his words. Mrs. Hart,
I'm calling to inform you that Mr. McKay passed away peacefully last night. His instructions were very specific. I'm to execute his will immediately. Rowan was dead. My ally. My salvation. Gone. The reading is scheduled at 10 a.m. at your residence, as per his wishes. He wanted it handled quickly, no delays. 3 hours later, Mr. Patterson stood in my living room with his leather briefcase and official documents. Julian sat pale and confused. Ilara perched on the edge of the couch like a vulture waiting for carrion. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Patterson began, adjusting his glasses, "the last will and testament of Rowan McKay is quite straightforward. After careful consideration of his life, his values, and his profound gratitude to those who shaped his character during his formative years," Ilara leaned forward, practically vibrating with anticipation, "he leaves the entirety of his estate, including all liquid assets, real property, business holdings, and investment portfolios, to Mrs. Drusilla Hart." Silence. Complete, suffocating silence. "The total estimated value," Mr. Patterson continued with clinical precision, "is approximately $85 million. The sound that erupted from Ilara wasn't human. It was something primal, animalistic, a shriek of pure rage mixed with disbelief. "What?" The coffee mug in her hands exploded against the hardwood floor. "That's impossible. This crazy old witch doesn't deserve a fucking penny." The profanity hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Mr. Patterson didn't even flinch. "There must be some mistake," Julian said weakly, his face the color of old paper. "No mistake," Mr. Patterson replied calmly. "Mr. McKay was very explicit about his reasoning. He credited Mrs. Hart with saving his life and giving him the foundation for everything he achieved. She's got dementia. She's crazy. She can't inherit anything. She's not mentally competent." For months, I'd been called crazy, delusional, incompetent. But sitting there, watching this woman have a complete psychological breakdown over money that was never hers, I felt something I hadn't experienced in ages. Power. I stood up slowly, deliberately. For the first time in months, I felt the full weight of who I used to be. Principal Drusilla Hart, who'd faced down violent teenagers and entitled parents for 30 years. "Excuse me." My voice was quiet, but it cut through Ilara's hysteria like a blade. She whirled on me, face twisted with rage. "You heard me, you manipulative old cunt. You poisoned his mind. You stole what should have been ours." "Ours?" I repeated slowly. "What exactly did you do to earn Rowan's gratitude?" "I've been taking care of you, feeding you, housing you, dealing with your insanity. This is my house, my family. That money should be mine." Taking care of me. The lies came so easily, even now. "Taking care of me," I said, touching my cheek where her handprint had burned just days ago. "Is that what you call starving me, striking me, isolating me from everyone I know?" "You're delusional." "Am I?" I looked at Mr. Patterson, who was recording everything on his phone. Would a delusional person hide bruises? Would a crazy woman learn to creep through her own house to avoid being attacked? "Julian," Ilara's voice cracked like a whip, tell them about her episodes, her violence." All eyes turned to Julian, my son, the boy I'd raised alone, sacrificed everything for. He opened his mouth, closed it. His eyes darted between his wife's manic face and his mother's calm strength. "Mother," Julian said finally, voice barely above a whisper, "maybe we should discuss." "Julian!" Ilara screamed. "She attacked me. Just last week, she came at me with a knife." A knife? I'd never touched a weapon in my life. "She's dangerous. She can't handle this kind of money. She'll lose it all." That's when Mr. Patterson spoke again, his voice cutting through her hysteria. "Mrs. Julian, I should inform you that Mr. McKay anticipated potential complications regarding his bequest. He instructed me to document any attempts to contest Mrs. Hart's mental competence or interfere with the inheritance." He held up his recording device. "This conversation has been recorded in its entirety, including your statements about Mrs. Hart's alleged incompetence and your colorful assessment of her character." Ilara's face went through a spectrum of colors, white, red, then a mottled purple that made her look like she was choking on her own rage. "You can't do this," she whispered. "It's already done," Mr. Patterson replied. "The transfers began processing at 9 a.m. Mrs. Hart's accounts will be updated by close of business today." That's when Ilara snapped completely. She lunged at me like a wild animal, nails extended, screaming obscenities I won't repeat. But 30 years of breaking up schoolyard fights had taught me how to handle violent outbursts. I stepped aside. She crashed into the coffee table, sending papers flying everywhere. "Julian!" she screamed from the floor. "Do something! Stop this!" My son, my only child, stood frozen, watching his wife have a complete breakdown while his mother stood victorious for the first time in months. Mr. Patterson was already on his phone, probably calling security. "The police will be here shortly," he said calmly. "Mrs. Julian, I suggest you compose yourself." But Ilara was beyond composing. She lay on my living room floor sobbing and screaming about fairness and theft and how I'd manipulated a dying man. Julian finally moved, but not toward me. He knelt beside his wife, trying to calm her, whispering that everything would be okay. Even now, even after witnessing her complete loss of humanity over money, he chose her. I'm still shaking from this. Have you ever watched someone you thought you knew completely lose their humanity over money? Like mask off, screaming obscenities, physically attacking an elderly woman kind of breakdown? I keep replaying Ilara calling me those names, and I can't believe my son just stood there. Drop a comment because I need to know, when you saw someone's true evil come out, did it change how you saw everyone around them who stayed silent? Because I'm questioning everything I thought I knew about the people I called family. The police arrested her that afternoon, but the real reckoning was still coming.
3 months later, I'm sitting in Rowan's study, my study now, and I can finally breathe again while the lawyers handle the last of the criminal charges. Ilara was arrested that day. Assault on an elderly person, they called it. The recording Mr. Patterson made didn't just capture her breakdown, it captured months of lies unraveling in real time. Turns out several neighbors had been documenting things too. Mrs. Chen had security cameras. The mailman had kept notes about misdelivered mail he'd been told to hold. The prosecutor called it elder abuse, financial manipulation, isolation tactics. They had terms for everything Ilara had done to me, clinical words that made it sound less personal somehow. She got 18 months. Could have been longer, but she took a plea deal. Julian came to see me exactly once after the arrest. He stood in this same doorway where I'm sitting now, his face hollow, aged 10 years and 3 months. His voice was barely a whisper when he finally spoke. "Mother,
I, I didn't know it was that bad. I looked at my son, this man I'd raised alone, this boy I'd given everything for, and I felt nothing but emptiness. "Yes, you did," I said quietly. "You saw the bruises. You heard the lies. You watched me disappear piece by piece, and you chose to believe it was my fault." His jaw worked like he was chewing words he couldn't swallow. "If you drop the charges, we could still be a family. I could make this right." Make it right. As if there was a magic combination of words that could undo months of betrayal. "Family doesn't watch in silence while their mother bleeds," I told him. He left after that. Never came back. The house feels different now. Bigger. Quieter. Sometimes I walk through rooms I couldn't enter for months and remember how small I'd become in my own space, how I'd crept through my own hallways like a ghost. I've started volunteering again, literacy programs for adults who missed their chance the first time around. Turns out there are a lot of people who need someone to believe in them when everyone else has given up. The money changes everything and nothing at the same time. I can afford the best doctors, the finest food, travel to places I only dreamed about. But I eat most meals alone, sleep in a house where no one calls my name. Sometimes I think about Julian. Wonder if he thinks about me. If he regrets choosing silence over speaking up for what was right. But mostly, I think about Rowan. How he spent his last months tracking down the one person who'd seen potential in him when the world saw only problems. How he used his dying breath to save me the way I'd once saved him. People ask me if I'm lonely, if I regret how everything ended.
The truth is complicated. I miss the Julian I raised, the boy who used to tell me about his day over dinner, but that boy grew into a man who could watch his wife destroy his mother and call it caregiving. I don't miss being afraid in my own home, don't miss counting crackers hidden in my nightstand, or wondering if today would be the day they finally succeeded in erasing me completely. Freedom tastes different than I expected. Less sweet, more substantial. Like bread after you've been starving. I've learned something about family in these months of silence. Blood doesn't make someone loyal. Shared DNA doesn't guarantee they'll choose you when choosing becomes necessary. But sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, the people who matter most aren't the ones you gave birth to. They're the ones who remember what you gave them when they needed it most, who show up when you need saving, even if they're dying themselves. Rowan McKay was more my son in his last days than Julian had been in his last years. I still live in the same town, still see familiar faces at the grocery store, though they look at me differently now. Some with pity, the poor old woman whose family betrayed her, some with suspicion, wondering if I really was as innocent as the courts decided. But some look at me with something I haven't seen in years. Respect. I'm not the same woman who hid bruises and swallowed lies. I'm not the principal heart who commanded rooms with discipline and determination. I'm something new. Something I'm still figuring out.
Yesterday, I got a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Mother, it said, Ilara's getting out early. Good behavior. I thought you should know. She's different now. Says she's found God. Wants to make amends. Maybe we could all sit down, talk things through, start over. Jay. I read it twice. Then I fed it to the fireplace and watched Julian's hope burn to ash. Some bridges, once broken, can't be rebuilt. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal. And sometimes the family you choose to walk away from is the greatest gift you can give yourself. Because here's what I've learned. Sometimes the people who claim to love you are the ones trying hardest to make you disappear. And sometimes the truest act of family isn't forgiveness. It's having the strength to say, enough. What would you choose? The blood family who betrayed you, or the peace of walking away? Drop a comment, because I'm still learning to live with my choice. And I wonder if I'm the only one who's ever had to choose survival over forgiveness.